Hi guys, welcome to Pixel Affair. It's Kobe here. So in today's video, we are going to see how we will use basic Cinema 4D's particle system to generate some sort of shockwave explosion to drive our Mograph object, or to give it that fluid movements like some sort of advection, right? So basically, what we are going to do is that we are going to take this particle explosion which I've just created here. If I hit play, you can see it's just particles exploding, right? And convert it into this, right? And then use it to drive our Mograph object, right? And also, if you have this shockwave by Video Copilot lecture, let me hit play to show one of them. So this particular video, this shockwave video element and stuff, it's something that you can actually bring it straight into Cinema 4D to also drive your clone, and we'll try and see how we will use this one as well in scenario. So you can see all these kind of shockwaves can actually be used in Cinema 4D to also drive or advect our Mograph objects. So let's get into Cinema 4D and see how we will do this and eventually turn it into something like this, right? And this was something I did way back in not this particular picture video itself, but I used similar technique in project way back then. I didn't have X particles or turbulence FD to do this, so I felt it would be necessary, and there are a lot of techniques that you can learn in there. So let's get into Cinema 4D and see how we will do something like this using basic Cinema 4D stuff. So I'm in Cinema 4D and I'm using Cinema 4D R26, but you should be able to do it in almost every Cinema 4D version that you have from at least R20 upwards. So let's first of all create our emitter. So I'll come into my simulation tab and I'll choose emitter, and you can see we have emitter like particles coming, right? So I'll come into the attributes, the emitter settings, and I'll reduce the size, everything to 0, right? So now if I hit play, you can see particles are coming on small here on the straight line. I'll change it from on the angle horizontal, I'll set it to 360, and now it will be generating 360 horizontally. So if I hit play, you can see it generating particle all around. So that's what we want. So I'll come into the particles, increase the number of particles to like 1,000, and if I hit play, you can see we have particles generating on a circle like that. And then we don't want it to emit all frames. I want it to emit like 3 frames or something. So I'll set it from start emission 0 and the stop emission to like 3. And if I hit play, you can see it generates these particles, but it's quite small. So I'll increase the number of particles to like say 5,000 or something, right? And now if we hit play, we have some particles generating, but they are coming at the same time. So let's add a little bit of variation. So I'll come into the variation and I'll set the variation, increase it a little bit, and I'll even increase the speed. I want it to have a very powerful speed, like probably 500. Let's see. If I hit play and see, yeah, I like the way it's coming. But then you see it will continue going with this same speed, and I don't want it. I want the initial speed, then it slows down. So with that, we are going to use friction. So I'll come into my simulation forces and I'll choose friction. So it's like a drag force. So basically you reduce the energy in the particle speed or something, right? So if I hit play now, it's set to 10. If I hit play now, you can see the first particle coming now, it slows down, right? Alright, that's cool. I can actually, let me see if I increase the speed to 700, it will do anything better. Still, right, maybe I have to reduce the friction rather to probably 7 or more 5. Yeah, so I think the 5 is fine. But another issue is that I think the circle that the particles are generating is too clean and doesn't have any randomness in it, right? So with the friction, I want some to stop, and then some to sort of like I want a little bit variation in the way the shape of our emitter is generated. It looks too circular and rounded, clean, right? So with the friction selected, I'll come to fields and I'll add noise to it, right? Randomness to it. But the random, I usually use the shader field in there. I'll select the shader field and come to the shaders, and I'll choose noise, right? The noise, I'll select the noise and come in here. You can have all of these noise, and down here So I'll choose one of these. I'll try this STUPL thing, and if I hit play, you can see a little bit of randomness in it. Let's actually increase the contrast of the noise, and also increase the global scale to like say 400 to see. You can see there's a little bit of, let's actually reduce the global scale to 300 and probably increase the contrast a bit more. So you can see we are having some, a bit of randomness in it. I'll probably increase the, and now if I hit play once again, can see you have some, I think maybe the global scale should come down a bit to 200. So you basically play around to see which one works, maybe 100 itself, right? I mean, if it doesn't, you keep trying to see. Yeah, I think actually 1000 rather works. So I like the way it looks with 1000, global scale of 1000, right? Right. So now we've created a emitter giving us that sort of explosion, or how do you call it? Yeah, explosion looking particles, right? Or shockwave. So now all I have to do is to come in here and I'll create my plane object. I'll actually make it a little bit bigger. In fact, I'll make it 1000 by 1000. So I'll select the plane and make it 1000 by 1000, right? And I think the speed of emitter is too much. So for now, let's bring it back to 500. And let's hit play a little bit. Let's hide the plane to see what we have. Right, and probably can increase the friction now a bit more to like 7. Yeah, something like that will be fine. So now we have our first shockwave created. So we are going to send these particles, we are going to transfer it to like a vertex map. So I'll select my plane, bring back the plane, enable it, and I'll increase the number of segments. If I change the display to garage shading, increase the number of segments a bit more, like probably 200 by 200, right? And I'll make it editable. If I were to be using R23 in 2023 in my 4D version, I wouldn't necessarily have to do that, but R26. So I'll right click on the plane, come to other tags, and I'll choose vertex map, right? So I'll select the vertex map, and here I'll say use fields. I'll delete the freeze, and then I'll go ahead and add our emitter in here. They'll ask us a switch object, so I'll say particle object. And now if I hit play, you can see our particles are generating these dots and everything, right? But it's too dotted and stuff like that. So I'll select the emitter and I'll come down here, the layer, I'll make sure I'll choose this layer tab, and I'll increase the size to like say 50, right? And now you can see we have something happening. Right. Another thing is that still I wanted to leave a little bit of trail. So what I'll do is I'll come into my layer modifiers and I'll choose decay, right? And I'll probably increase it a little bit. And now if I hit play, you can see it gives us like that trail and everything. I can actually even increase it a bit more. And now if I hit play, you can see we have those trails leaving behind. So that's basically our shockwave generated. So with this, actually select the vertex map, and I'll come into the emitter. I'll come into the remap tab here, and now with the remap, I'll come here and see the maximum. You can minimum and maximum. I'll reduce the maximum to like say 30, right? And that's because I want to add on another. You can see, let me disable the shade lines here. You can see we have something happening, but it's not that visible actually. I think the 20 is fine. And you can see there's a little bit of yellowness happening, but it's not that visible, right? So I can even come back to the layer and increase the size a little bit, right? So this is our first wave, and now we can go ahead and create our multiple copies of our emitter if you want. So I'll create another copy. All right, and the same thing, I'll probably change the start and stop emission, and then maybe change the seed and all of that. Maybe the variation, reduce the do variations to it, and I'll select your vertex map and apply the second emitter, which is this. I'll choose particles object, and you can see you have the same thing. So I'll select that one, and I'll make sure I'll increase the scale, the radius to something big enough, and then it should be fine. So if I hit play, so that for now, that's what has taken over. So I'll make sure I'll set it to max or add, and you can see what we have. So if I hit play, it should give us this trail. But then I'll select it, come to its remap, and then I'll reduce the maximum as well a little bit. And let's play around, see what we have. All right, so with this, you can go ahead and create multiple copies of your vertex map and make sure it's well deep enough and everything. So now let's assume this is a shockwave and we are cool with it. I mean, with I added a couple of emitters, right? I think about 3 of them, and I played around with the radius and the decay and everything, right? Another thing is that let me select the vertex map, and in here, after the decay, I can go ahead and add another modifier, which is delay, right? And the delay, I'll set it from smooth to spring, so it give us some sort of ripple like effect kind of thing. So if I hit play, and see now it gives out some sort of ripple feeling, right? Can even increase the delay effect and all of that. So that's basically, let's say this is our vertex map. Everything is fine, but we can still go ahead. So what I can do is that I'll come in here and I'll add another noise on top of it. So I'll come into here and I'll choose my shader field. I'll make sure it's below the decay and the delay, everything, and I'll set that mode to overlay. But then I'll come into the shader and I'll choose noise. All right, and the noise, I'll probably use the same STUP or something. Add a bit of contrast and maybe increase the global scale to like 500. Right, and let's hit play to see what we have. You can see it has a little bit of noise in there. We can add animation speed, so I'll add animation speed of 1 to it, and like play around to eventually see you have something that you think you are cool with, right? And with that, we can reduce the, let's select the vertex map once again. Probably come in here, remap, and then can reduce the global, the max as well a little bit. So you play around with it enough, and now you can see you have something that probably you'll be cool with. I think I can select the shader and make it a little bit bigger, like 1000. Right, so now we are cool. Basically, everything is fine for us to use it on our Mograph object. So if you think you can play around with it a lot, you can still go ahead and play around with it to get something that you are really satisfied with. So the next thing is I'll come in here and let's go ahead and create our Mograph object. So in this case, I'm going to use it on the matrix object, but you can use it on clones and everything. So I'll come into my objects and I'll choose matrix. I'll increase the number of counts to like 100, right? And I'll increase the scale here on the scale Z to like I think 5 will be fine, right? And now the first thing is that we want to bring in or scale up our matrices. So what I'll do is that I'll come into my effectors. I'll make the matrix selector. I'll come to my effectors and I'll choose plane effector. You can see it's moving our object upwards. So I'll come into the parameters. I don't want to move it upwards rather, but I want to scale it. So I'll use enable scale and I'll set it to -1. And what we want to use to drive the scale is the matrix object. So I'll select the plane effector, effector, come to fields, and I'll drag and drop in our vertex map. You can see something is happening in here. Let me go ahead and hide the plane. Right, and now if I hit play, you can see the vertex map, what it's basically doing. It's giving us this, but we want it the other way around, right? We want it to reveal. So what I'll do is I'll select plane effector, I'll drag it down actually, plane effector, and in the modify layers I'll choose invert, and I can see it's inverted effect. So if I hit play, you can see it's bringing it on and everything. So we are cool for now. You can actually add a bit of position to it. I'll select the plane. If I come to P and I'll position, I'll set it to maybe 10, and now if I hit play, it will be coming down, but for now we will not see. Now one thing is that you see, I actually did this. If I come into my, let me disable the plane, and in my matrix the Z is actually longer, right? So let's actually rotate it so that it stands for us to see what's happening. So I'll set this one to 90, and now this is what we have. Right, and I have a reason why I made the Z longer instead of the Y, because I want to use a target effector to actually direct the rotation of our matrices. So with the matrices, if I want to use any other effector to rotate it, it will all go in the same direction. Like let's say if I use the plane to affect the rotation, if I like enable the plane, I'll disable scale. Now let's say enable rotation. You can see they all go one direction, either this side or that side, but I don't want that, right? What I want is I want all of the planes to be rotating facing like the center of our world, right? And with that, I'm going to use the target field. So if I select my matrix object and come to my effectors, and I'll choose target effector. Where is it? Target effector. You can see all our objects rotates and it's facing the middle. It's not visible. So but if I take the target object and move it up, you can see what's happening, right? It's all like trying to look to the center of our world, and that's what I want. But then I want it to flip backwards. So I'll come in here and I'll choose reverse heading. And this might not be visible because of the pivot of our matrices, right? So I'll leave it like that for now, but I'll reverse heading and we are cool with our target object. So now with the target object, I'll drag it down. So I'll come to fields and I'll use the same vertex map to drive it, and you can see this is what we have. So let me enable the plane, make sure our scale is on. So when it scales on, then it's rotating. So if I hit play, and see it scales on, and it will be rotating and continue like that. Actually, right? So that's basically the idea. So from here going to add a little bit of randomness in the rotation, I can select the matrix once again, come into my effectors, and I'll add my random effector. I don't want to randomize position, rather but rotation, so I'll uncheck it and I'll say random rotation a little bit, maybe 15, somewhere here, or 10. So you just play around with it and have a little bit of randomness in it. And even with the random, I wouldn't use just the random mode. I'll change it to noise, and now increase the scale to like say 1000, and reduce the animation speed to like just 5, right? So that there will be enough like randomness and everything wouldn't be that obvious, right? And now again, another thing I'll do is that I'll select the matrix again, and I'll come into my effectors, and I'll add a delay effector, choose spring to give it that springiness, right? And I'll increase that, and I'll select it once again, matrix, come into my effectors, and I'll choose the delay, and this time I'm going to leave it as blend, and also so that it smooths the everything animation, right? So you can go ahead and play with several effectors and everything to give you that fluid looking movement and all of that, right? So now after we've generated our matrices and everything, the next is how do we add colors and all of that, colors using the same vertex map to drive our object, right? And it's simple as we can actually create a new effector just for color, right? But I'm going to use the same one, the one that we used for the plane for the scale. So I'll select the plane, come into the fields, and you can see the vertex map, the color is on, right? but nothing is happening. So if I come in here, down here, you can see we have remapping. So I'll select the remapping tab and I'll choose enable remapping. And if I come select the remap, a color remap, which immediately I enable the remap, you can see the color remap tab has been added. So in there, you can see the color mode is set to no remap. So I can choose gradient, and I can see we have our colors like being remapped with this gradient, right? So we are cool. But one thing with the gradients, one thing with this is that it's direct, so the edges are black and the inner parts are white. I want a bit of noise to it, so we can go ahead and do that. So we can simply come in here and use the same shader field. We can use random, but I'll use the shader field like I say, and I'll apply the shader field to it, right? And I'll change it from I think the max, let's see, the max will be fine. And I'll come in here and I'll choose one of noise, and the one of these noise I'll choose. In this case, let's use Zada, right? And maybe increase the global scale to like probably 1000 again. Let's add a bit of contrast to our noise. And I mean, for now we don't see much going on. Let's increase the global scale to 1000, like I said. We don't see much going on, so I'll come back into our plane. I'll make sure in there, let's select the vertex map and let's actually see the colors. I'll make this one probably purple like that, and I'll make this one, let's see, the red. Right, so now the reason why we are not seeing the colors for the shader is because you don't want to affect the scale and the position and everything of our objects. So I'll disable this, and what we want to affect rather is color. So I'll make sure I'll click on this one, and you can see now it has actually added that randomness to our colors, right? So I'll select this and take it back to black and white like the way on. So I'll make black and white and black, right? So now this is our object, our matrices and everything. So if you want to use clones, we'll have applied the same strategy using clones to it, but in this case you are using matrices and you are going to use Redshift to render our object. So for us to render it in Redshift, it's simple, right? So now we've basically created the scene. I mean, in my case, like there was a lot of matrices, and I reduced the size of the matrix and everything as well, right? But I mean, for us to get a faster viewport, for us to see how the whole idea works, I mean, I've reduced it, right? So let's actually see how we will apply render our object with Redshifts. So to add to start rendering our matrix object, the first thing you have to do is to right click our matrix, come into our render tags, and I'll add a Redshift object tag to it. And in there you can see the particle tab here. You choose one of these modes. We can actually choose custom object and bring in any object that we want, right? But in this case, I'm actually going to just choose a sphere instance, right? And then I'll go ahead and create a dome light for a general light. And then I'll create a floor. Let me create a plane, make it quite huge, right? And now let's actually go ahead and create our material. So I'll come in here, create Redshift material. And this one is going to be for the floor. So I'll click and drag it and apply it to the floor. I'll actually make it dark. Can actually reduce the reflection or even make it even more blur. And I'll create another copy of the Redshift material. And this one will be applied to the matrix itself, right? So if we should bring our Redshift render view, right, and hit render, can see we have something going on. Now one thing you have to do is, like, let me select the Redshift object tag, and in here you can see the scalar multiplier set to 1. Let's increase it to like say 5, so that it's visible enough for us to see what's going on here, right? And the next thing is that how do we get the color, the black and white shade color to come in? It's quite easy. So let's double click on this material for the matrix, you can see, and bring the material node in here. And now you can type in color and you can see color user data. We will drag and drop this one, color user data, and in the attribute name we will change it. We'll click on this arrow and choose Mograph color, right? And now connect it to our diffuse color, and now you can see it's bringing in our black and white mode that we had, right? So with this black and white mode, now we can go ahead and add any color that we want to it. So for instance, I'll come in here now, look for ramp, and I can bring in this ramp, right? And I'll connect our Mograph, this thing, color user data, connect it to the gradient ramp, and rather connect the gradient ramp to the diffuse color. So now with this gradient ramp, we can actually control the colors here. So the blacks, I can simply click here and I'll make it probably the purple or the green or whatever color that you want, right? And I'll make the heights maybe the pinkish or the reddish something, right? So you can like play around with it till eventually you think you have something you want. And with the ramp, because like it's gradient, you can actually go ahead and adjust it. And if you want more of the purple, more of the green, or more of the blue, and you can even add extra colors into it. Like I can click here and say I'll add yellow somewhere, and you can see yellow too has been added. So that's basically how you render your object. So in my original scene, what I basically did is, let me actually see if I can open that scene. Let me come to that particular scene, the one I created earlier, right? And if I should show the settings in here, I had a little bit more. So for instance, the matrix, if I select the matrix and come, you can see it was like a lot of them, 500 by 500, and the sizes were quite small, right? 0.1, 0.1, and then also I used a couple of emitters, so first, second, and third emitter that actually comes after that. And also in the middle here, I didn't want to leave so much space like I have here, so I actually created another, in the vertex map, I actually created another spherical field, right, in the vertex map, which had a little bit of noise in there, so that here wouldn't be too empty like that, right? I created another spherical field and added a little bit of noise and reduced the max strength so that the middle wouldn't be too like empty, right? So you can go ahead and play with it a lot to get whatever you want. But basically, I hope you get the idea of what I mean. Right, let me go back to the other scene. What else did I do? Yeah, so basically, like literally everything was the same. The number of emitters increased, but apart from that, everything I did was almost the same. Right, now let's go back to this scene. And if in case you don't have Redshift and you want to use regular Cinema 4D to render, it's just as simple as coming in and creating, let's say, a clone, right? And the object that you want to use to render, I'll create, let's say, a box, make it a child of the clone, and make it smaller, something like that. Let's assume we are fine. Then I'll change the mode from object to from grid to object. I'll probably set it to render instance or something, and then the object you want to clone on is this matrix, right? So I'll drag and drop it in. You can see our cubes are here. It could be any object though, right? And now with this, you can go ahead and apply the same. So for instance, with the clone selected, I can come in here with effectors, and I'll apply this plane effector to it though. But then I don't want the plane effector. Let's see. Actually, I'll disable. I wouldn't apply the plane effector. No, I think, yeah, I'll actually come in here now. I can apply another plane effector to it. I don't want it to affect its position, anything. I don't want it to affect position, anything. All I want is the colors, right? So I can come into the fields and I'll apply our vertex map to it. right? I don't want to affect position, but what I want is color, to affect the color information. Let's hide our matrices. All I want is the color information of our plane and the show work. If I come in here, remap, enable remap, and I'll come down to gradients, right? And it should go ahead and work exactly the same as we did for our redshift object, right? So basically, this is how you probably, if you want to use the clones, you actually go ahead and use it. I hope this was useful, and if there's anything that you don't understand in this video, you can actually let me know. But let me quickly also show how we will use the Grayscale Gorilla video copilot footages or shockwave I was actually talking about. So I'll copy this vertex map plane, I'll edit, copy, create a new scene, and I'll edit, paste it in here, right? I'll show, and you can see we don't have any of those things in here, right? All we have is the vertex map. Now I'll delete everything that we have in here, and now in the vertex map, if we want to use the video copilot footage, right? So I'll come in here and I'll choose shader, and in the shader field, I'll come down here to you can see where we have custom shader. We can click down here, you can click on this to go and look for any object that you want to apply. But I'll simply drag and drop in the video copilot shockwave video footage, right, of info in here. So like these are the shockwaves that's in there. So I can simply click and drag and drop it on the folder here, and you can see it asks us this question. I'll choose no, but you can see it has applied it to our vertex map, right? And from here going, we can now go ahead and use it through the same processes, use it to drive our effectors and our fields and everything to get whatever we want. So you can also use this to drive your clones, and you can go ahead and apply the delay and the decay and all of that. If I come in here and apply decay to it, and see it gives it that delay, decay effects and all of that, right? So you can go ahead and apply it and use it in your scenes and everything. I hope this was useful and you learned something from this particular video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.